Hi, welcome to another episode of Lachlan Likes a Thing, the show where I take a thing and see whether or not I like it. Now, today we're going to be looking at another pair of headphones, this time the Sony MDR-1Rs. Now, just like last week's Sennheiser Momentums, the Sony MDR-1Rs are Sony's entry into the lifestyle headphone category. So these are headphones that are designed to be portable, comfortable, and stylish, as well as delivering, decent sound quality. Now, you can see here, I've got the silver and brown color. The silver and brown color is not available in all countries as far as I can tell, but luckily Australia does get the silver and brown color. And I thought the silver and brown looks quite gentlemanly, so that's why I chose it. The black and red version also looks very cool, but I have enough black headphones, so a silver was a nice little change. Now, the MDR-1Rs, the design, first off let me say, it's a really classic looking design. It's both got elements of the modern, as well as this kind of retro feel to it. So it looks a little more cutting edge, say, than the Sennheiser Momentums, which have that kind of really retro look. The MDR-1Rs share design features similar to, other headphones in Sony's past, like the MDR-F1, the SA5000, and in particular in the headband design and the ear cups and that kind of thing. It really also resembles the Z1000, which is what the MDR-1R is a direct successor to. Now, just like the Z1000, it employs a liquid crystal polymer driver, which you can actually see. I don't know if you can see this in the video, but you can actually see the whole driver exposed, so it's pretty cool. Though, of course, it's probably quite delicate as well. So that's nice. It employs the same kind of driver technology, though unlike the Z1000, the MDR-1 is built out of plastic and not magnesium as the Z1000 is. Understandably, the Z1000 is a lot more of an expensive headphone. Though with the MDR-1R, it's still built quite well. You get quite a nice, sturdy build. It's not quite up there with something like the Sennheiser Momentum or even the Logitech UE6000, which feels incredibly solid. But the MDR-1R still is a well-built headphone. One thing is, you get this nice supple detachable cable, which has ridges along the sides of it, which is supposedly to stop the cable from tangling. I don't know if that's really effective or not, the ridges I mean. Overall, the cable I've found in the weeks that I've used it doesn't really tangle very often, which is very good. You get an iPhone remote, and you also get a cable without the remote in the box. Now, one thing that has cropped up on the forums that people have noticed is that on the detachable headphone jack, on some units of the headphone, the cable actually swivels or rotates slightly in the jack, and it makes a noise in movement. This is a bit unfortunate. Most other manufacturers, when they make a headphone with detachable cables, a lot of them will put a locking mechanism, which will prevent the cable from being pulled up, but will also mean a more secure fit so that you wouldn't get this kind of rotation. Unfortunately, this is not present on the MDR-1Rs, and it is a slight annoyance whenever the cable is pulled. Now, suggested solutions on the forum have been things like putting blue tack or those kind of things, but really this shouldn't have been a problem in the first place. Apart from that, it's a nice design. It also folds up for compact storage, unlike the Sennheiser Momentums, so they're actually more portable and more easily taken around. And the ear cups are quite large with really supple ear pads, so they're very comfortable on the head. I'd say they're about as comfortable as the Sennheiser Momentums. Now, because it's synthetic leather, it's very supple, but it's still synthetic leather, it doesn't breathe quite as well as the Sennheiser Momentums. But because of the larger ear cups, there's less of your skin actually in contact with the ear pads, so it's much over muchness at that point. Now, in terms of sound, I think it's worthwhile to compare to the Sennheiser Momentums, because I think that they're roughly equal in terms of sound quality. The differences are that the MDR-1R has quite a thick sound, It's definitely not as neutral as the MDR-1. It's definitely not as neutral as the Momentums. The MDR-1R has a distinct emphasis on the lower mids, so it kind of a chesty sound. It's got quite a chesty sound. It's also got this nice kind of musical emphasis on the lower treble as well, which makes particularly female vocals sound really quite sweet on this headphone. In terms of bass performance, the MDR-1R still is not as strong as the Sennheiser Momentums in terms of the tightness or the physicality of the bass. But it's definitely a huge improvement in terms of sound over the Z1000, which, despite being made of much more expensive materials, compared to the Sony MDR-1R, it sounds a bit more hazy, a bit more grainy. That said, the MDR-1R still does have a kind of slight congestion to the sound compared to the Sennheiser Momentums. This may not sound like it's as good as the Momentums, but there's one big difference between the Momentums and the MDR-1Rs, and it's the Soundstage. Now, for the MDR-1Rs, and I don't know if it's because of the larger ear cup volume or because the ear cups are actually angled, you get actually a much more wide and a much more natural and relaxing soundstage. So you get more of a sense of being inside the music as opposed to having two speakers on either side of your head. Now, the Momentum still has the last word in definition in that soundstage, so you still get a better sense of where the instruments are in the soundstage compared to the MDR-1R, where it sounds wider but a little more diffuse. The instruments are a little harder to place. That said, though, the keyword here is relaxing. The MDR-1R has a natural, quite a beautiful overall balance. It's not as neutral as the Momentums, but if you wanted something that was like the Momentums, if you wanted something of a similar sound quality to the Momentums, but a different kind of signature, here you have something that's not quite as dark, I guess, as the Momentums in terms of the emphasis on bass, and it's also got a sweeter treble and vocal section compared to the Momentums, which can sound very precise but also at some times thin, whereas this will sound a bit more forgiving. And I think that the MDR-1R is probably better for more forgiving of a larger genre of music than the Momentums, though they are both very forgiving and very relaxing headphones. Now, the MDR-1R's recommended retail price is about $299 US, compared to I think about $350 or $399 US for the Sennheiser Momentum. Now, honestly, I think that the Sennheiser Momentum's build and their still slight edge in technical performance over the MDR-1R justifies the price difference. I'd have liked to see these come in maybe a bit cheaper, maybe at about $250 US. Recently we've seen sales during Christmas where this headphone street price has dropped well below even $250, so I think that price is about right. I would have also liked to see another version of the MDR-1Rs with, the kind of premium build quality that we've come to expect from some of the higher end models from Sony, like the Z1000. That said, I use the MDR-1Rs just as much as I use the Momentums. They're both great headphones, and I really like these as well. So if you get a chance, have a listen, see how you like them, and thanks for watching this video.